It's Clinton. A lot of dignitaries in the hall tonight.
There's someone. Okay. All right. Cool. All righty. Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, the last Monday of the month. I hope that everybody's having a good day, had a wonderful weekend. So I'm Luke, for the ones who do not know me. Before we just get on this call, I just want to go through some of the announcements that we have. I'm going to go through them quickly. So today is the last week of the health vet. I hope that you guys have been doing a great job and you continue to motivate all your customers and your fellow coaches on this last week. To find out more information on how the payout is going to happen when it is over on October 2nd, check FAQ 7776 so you get all the information on that. As you know, this is the last week of the month, so you can still go strong on your Stats Club. So a quick reminder on the challenge packs that are on sale. You have a Country Heat, 21-day fix, 21-day fix extreme, 22-minute hardcore with the container and the sandbag. You also have the 3-day refresh, size, pile, and the beach body on demand. And all of those challenge packs come also with a Kickstart version. That means they would include the 3-day refresh as well. So the regular challenge pack are all $140, and the Kickstart version are $180. And the 22-minute hardcore is the only challenge pack that can either come with Shakeology or the Performance line. All the other ones is just Shakeology and whatever flavor you want with that. Another information, Stephanie did a post on the team page about the challenge group that we're about to run starting October, with the Beachbody on demand. So if you want more information, go back to that post and check that out. If you have information, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me or Stephanie, or if you have questions, you can either run one with us or you can run your own by yourself, or team up with a success partner, or by yourself if you so choose. Another information, Quarter Force is going to be released on November 1st, but I believe there is already a preview workout. I don't know if it's for coaches of a certain status or it's for everyone who has Beachbody on demand. So this is a great time right now, especially for this month of October, to really, if you have the chance to do it, try it. That will give you something to talk about and share that with the people that are following you and people that might be interested in a workout of that nature. I think it is a lot of fun and will definitely make a lot of people happy and get a lot of results to the people out there that need it. I hope you guys had a chance to actually listen to the National Wake Up Call this morning. It was very, very good by Christy Kronzer, where she talked about the difficulty of starting out as a coach, but how to just stay consistent and just continue to try and grow. I think that you can definitely learn a lot of tips on that. So please, if you get a chance, just listen to it, take some notes and share your takeaways and how you can just how that can help you and benefit you in your coaching career as well. As I mentioned earlier, this is the last week of the month, so there's still plenty of opportunity and time for you to reach your Stats Club. It's a good time right now to just make that extra push. If you feel like you're stuck somewhere, feel free to just reach out to any one of us, the leaders, or like anyone on the team, so we can help you out and see how we can just help you just get on the board and just help some life out there. Okay, so these are all my announcements for today. So we have a special guest on the call today, and she goes by the name of Dr. Chanelle Norman. So I know how healthcare folks love to have their title, so we're going to call her doctor. She's a doctor of physical therapy and manual orthopedic and primary care specialist. Wow, that was a mouthful. So she's also a 1-star diamond coach and a 4-star qualifying. So she's definitely book smart and she's business savvy. So I'm looking forward to learn from her and just take notes on all the good news she's going to share. So tonight she's going to be talking to us about storytelling. So with that said, Dr. Chanelle, I'm going to give the floor to you.
Thank you. First off, thanks for being here, guys. I'll just preface all of this by saying that speaking in front of people is like I'd rather be mauled by a bear than do that. So, just understand that first. And when I started being asked by really amazing coaches to talk about this topic, it kind of it humbled me a lot and really blew me away because I had no idea that so many really, really amazing coaches that I admire a lot, including Stephanie, had been paying attention to the way I share my story and the way that I built my organization and kind of the way I see coaching in general. So I really appreciate this opportunity, and we'll just get started. So, the first thing I want to say that I think a lot of people discredit from the start is understanding that I think when it comes to coaching in general, your ability to storytell is the game changer, like in terms of your success and your reach and your ability to, really help people be vulnerable with you. I think that that's the key when it comes to helping people either admit that they have some issues or admit that they aren't where they want to be in life. You have to be able to express yourself in a way that isn't intimidating and is inviting. And, I tell people that essentially your job is to tell your story in a way that's just documenting your life in a space that kind of gently just holds out your hand and asks someone to come with you. It's a very unjudgmental, very just accepting kind of persona that you have to be able to express. And I think for some people it's easier done in videos. Whereas myself, I've definitely audited my strengths, and videos are definitely a weakness of mine. I'm much better in writing, much more eloquent, and it's easier for me to express my thoughts in a way that's cohesive when I write. So, taking time to understand, how do you best express yourself, because how you feel most comfortable in expressing yourself is how it really determines how effective your ability to really reach someone on a deep level really dictates that. So, in order to tell your story, first off, you have to be able to write it. And obviously, in order to write it, you have to really acknowledge that it's there. I think so many times coaches kind of go into the topic of storytelling, and they just assume that either they don't have anything to share that really matters to other people, or what they've been through is so basic, or that everyone goes through it. And that's not to say that a lot of the things that we go through aren't common. I can say that my story, for one, I feel like, a lot of people have been divorced, right? But it's that small little snippet of my story that really helps people feel okay with listening to me and coming to me for help, So don't ever discredit even the small things that have happened in your life in terms of how monumental they can be in terms of really reaching people. And I think the bottom line of storytelling really is confidence, right? So the number one reason why you won't share something with people is because you're either afraid of what people are going to think about it, or you're afraid of how they maybe might judge you for it. And really, that's when I invite all of you to really think about what it means that you're even on this call at this moment. How many people, how many adults are investing a Monday night, learning how to reach people? Honestly, not that many. There aren't that many people in life that are truly dedicated to impacting other people. And so, honestly, I know how much time I personally put into coaching. I know how much time I put into developing who I am and learning about who I am and valuing my growth and my environment and everything. And it's that helps me Like I really could care less what the 5% of my followers or the 5% of the audience thinks about what I'm going to write, because, when it comes to sharing your story, you have to be able to look at it from a perspective of putting it out there in a very authentic way with no expectation of anything in return, right? Because it's that attitude and it's that persona through what you're sharing that makes it very unthreatening to people, and that's why I think a lot of times, we don't like to feel like we always have to invite people to challenge groups. We don't want to feel like we have to private message a whole bunch of people, right? Like I personally don't like that feeling, and I'll be honest, I've actually never cold invited anyone throughout my entire business. I have made it a very strong goal to write in a way that literally invites people in a very inadvertent manner. So speaking about topics, speaking about things that I've been through in a way that makes someone completely compelled to come to me. I would much rather be in that kind of a situation than feeling really uneasy about how I'm like going, coming off to people, right? So anyways, understand that confidence is a huge factor in how your story is perceived. Because if you're worried or you're afraid or you feel really uneasy about what you're writing, it will always, always, always show in that post. There's some kind of undertone that you put into that kind of a post that people can feel. So, it starts with like really feeling good about what you're sharing, and, kind of taking it from there. But, also understanding that the things you're going to share, the things you're going to write about, not everything is going to be like life altering, right? But when you are sharing something that's more vulnerable or a little more difficult to talk about, like really, remember and come to the understanding that your perspective is not up for discussion. Like what you've experienced and how you see life and how you see the world, that's just how it is. And so like that's how I think about things when I'm writing it. Like sometimes what I write's a little controversial. Sometimes, I'm a little unedited. I'm a little bit raw when it comes to my verbiage and things. But, the bottom line is like, that's just how I feel. That's how I express. And that's how I like to put it out there. And so, I think about the fact that like the way that I've processed life and the way that I've dealt with things isn't really up for judgment. And, once you develop that confidence about the things you've been through, it gets a lot easier to share it and put it out there. It's amazing the impact it has on your ability to reach people in a really gratifying way. And understand that there are going to be a lot of people who like love what you share, right? And people are either going to be really all in it. They're going to be all about it. They're going to appreciate you. They're going to admire you. And then there are going to be people that like look away from it. And truthfully, I'm kind of glad about that, right? Because the people who look away from the things that I share and the things that I talk about, they're probably not ready for my presence in their life anyways. And that's okay. Like I'm not offended by that. But if you aren't being true to yourself and sharing yourself like globally, as in like everything that you've been through and things that have created who you are as a person and as a coach and as a mother, as a spouse, whatever, then you're not going to really be that effective in kind of bringing along people who are like you. Like, we talk a lot about avatars and we talk a lot about how like attracts like when it comes to your tribe and your team. And there's no way that you can really get to the heart of that if you're not like being who you really are from the get-go in terms of sharing your story online. It all very much starts from there. And, I think it's a little easier when you're sharing it on like your personal page, but especially when it comes to like page type stuff, right? And you're doing ads and you're reaching people like a cold audience that doesn't know you, it becomes so important to know who you are and to be sharing that, because you want to be attracting people like you. You don't want to be putting out a persona of someone who, like, it isn't authentic to what you're going through, what you've been through, even if they want to join your tribe, right? Because what happens if you put yourself out there in a way that isn't true to who you are, and then they join your tribe, and then you have this person in your tribe that is nothing like you, and then that negativity or that kind of persona infiltrates the whole gang, and it can really, as you grow, it can really cause issues. So, taking time to invest into really understanding both what you've been through and how it's made you who you are is super, super important to your ability to storytell. It's kind of like the foundation of it. Confidence first, really understanding, and then confidence in who you are about that gives you the platform to feel good about sharing it. And, like I said, there are going to be people that don't like it. And I like to think of that as like an automatic social media filter. Like, it's just a really easy way of weeding out the people who aren't meant to hear your message right now, or aren't meant to, join your team or join your group or whatever. And allow the haters to stimulate empathy in your heart. That's what I really try to do. And, really it comes more from a place of just really thinking about my own journey and maybe what I was going through 5 years ago, and how maybe I saw life and how I saw things and people, and trying to put myself in their position in a place that doesn't make me feel insecure about who I am. Because insecurity in what you're talking about is what will make you really, really afraid to share that with other people. And probably my favorite thing to really think about is understanding that a winning player will never, ever, ever, ever look down on you for your losses, because winners lose a lot. Like for me, even when I see someone share something, maybe I don't even agree with it, right? Like maybe it doesn't resonate with me, but I see that they were extremely vulnerable in sharing it. Like, I could never begrudge someone for sharing vulnerability. I really think you have to be a piece of shit to really put someone down for putting themselves out there. And there are definitely really tactful ways of doing that, which we'll get to a little bit later. But that honestly makes me feel really good about when I share things, because I want to attract winners, right? I want to empower people. I want to motivate people, and I want to kind of be that hero to people who are kind of like me at their core, but they're just not there yet, and they just need help. So, understanding who it is you're trying to reach becomes really important, but, understanding that the people that you really want in your life, and sometimes this can be painful, right? Like sometimes it's your family that doesn't agree with what you post. Like sometimes it's people in your relationships or people you work with who are like, oh my God, did you see she posted 3 times on Facebook and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, thank you for telling me that you're annoyed by that, because it really just helps me spend less energy on you. And, understanding where you're spending your energy, it really, really matters. So, think about how important it is to be super self-aware, having that emotional intelligence, and understanding that when you share your experience with people like that, they're really going to love you for that. And just accept that. Be in a place where you're absorbing that really positive energy and those really positive relationships, and understand that the negative energy you may get from it really doesn't matter, because you're just in a place where you're just going to reflect it back, And, I do want to talk a little bit about how profound it is for me to say these things, right? Because 2008, you would never hear me talk about things like this, right? Just a little bit about my journey. Before I started Beachbody, I was about 8 months away from graduating with my clinical doctorate. And I was 100 pounds heavier than I am now. And the vision I had for my career did not include the person that I was at that moment, right? And, understanding that when it comes to my career and how much I love being a physical therapist, it's kind of it was my passion since I was 15. The moment I saw a PT work with a patient, a brain injury patient, and I saw the relationship and I saw the bond that those two people had, it just like blew my mind. And I'm like, that is what I need to be doing with my life. And, it took a lot of trials, similar to Stephanie's story. A lot of failures, a lot of failed applications, several years of failed applications. And it was in those rejections, in that disappointment, that I gained all of that weight, right? I became very depressed. I became really down on myself. And because that's what I wanted to do with my life. And it was like, I wasn't cut out for it. I felt so rejected. And, understanding that in high school, I was very fit. I was an athlete. So, I've always had that competitive edge. I've always really enjoyed fitness and all of that. That was never an issue. The issue was that I decided that it was a good idea to eat my emotions, right? So clearly that's not a good idea, but it took me a really long time to figure that out. And so, fast forward a little bit, and about, right after I earned my bachelor's in biology, I said, okay, well, what can I do to give myself a bit of an edge so that when I reapply again, I'll get an interview, and so I backtracked. I got my associates in physical therapy assisting, hoping that would show them that I was invested into the career. Like, this is what I was going to do. And lo and behold, after I finished that degree, about 2 years later, I reapplied. And in that moment, my husband and my high school sweetheart, mind you, when I told him that I reapplied, and understand that this had been my plan and my goal my whole life, especially since I'd known him, right? So many, many years, he said, you know what, I want to have kids now, and I don't want you to do that with your life. And okay, here I am, like morbidly obese, right? I've applied to doctorate school. I'm not quite sure what's happening there, but my husband is telling me that he doesn't want me to do that anymore. And, the silver lining to that story is, in that moment, I had to really it was a gut check moment for me. It was like, are you going to really follow your gut and your heart and really have some self-worth enough to choose the path that is meant for you? Or are you going to succumb to the fear and succumb to the normalcy of what things are in this relationship that clearly is not productive for you? And, it was weird because we've been together for about 10 years. And, I can still remember that moment like it was yesterday. It was a very subtle, very obscure, okay, well, then we're separating. Like there really wasn't even much of a discussion for me because I knew what I needed to do, and trust me, it wasn't easy after that. It wasn't easy at all, but, we separated, and then I was accepted for an interview, and I flew to Florida and I went for the interview, and about a month later, they called me and offered me admission. And, as a girl who had been trying to earn this goal for 6 years, I was so happy, right? I was so elated. I was so proud of myself. But I knew that my marriage was over, right? So it was like there was this pull from one end to the other. And, it was really rough. About 6 months later, we divorced. But about 4 weeks or 5 weeks after we separated, I found out that he had gotten his girlfriend pregnant. And, preface, he had every right to do that. I don't begrudge him, but understand what that did to my self-esteem, what that did to my self-worth, like how that really made me feel even more rejected and disappointed. And, it took probably 2 years to get through that turmoil. And so, I found out about that later on. And then about 2 weeks after our divorce was final, he remarried her. And that was all about 2 months after I started graduate school. And so, aside from the demand of graduate school and like how exhausting it was just academically, I was commuting to Florida from Indiana like 3 times a month, every other weekend. So like, this is how much I really wanted this goal. Like, I knew it was what I needed to be doing, but just when you add on the emotional turmoil of all of that to everything else that was attached to the goal, it was just so much to deal with. And so for about 3 years, I was like trudging through all of this stuff. And it took so long to like emotionally process the things that had been going on. And that's when, I stumbled upon my coach's transformation, right? And, there was just something inside of me that said, like, you just need to get your shit together. Like you've been going through the motions a little bit too long. And, that's when I started Beachbody and, ended up losing about 50 or 60 pounds before I graduated. And I felt really good on graduation day. But, it's that story, it's that turmoil that is hard to share, It's really hard to share because it's very ugly, like it's very imperfect. And especially when you're a professional, I think there's like this hidden thought that people who are professionals and people who are in healthcare, like have always had their life together or have always had like this perfect journey with this storybook ending. And, it's interesting because, some of you may like check out my timeline or whatever after this call, and you'll find that, for a long time, my storytelling was very succinct, very consistent. I've really had a lot of pride in myself for that. And, over the past several months, you'll find that posts are a lot less. They're a lot few and far between. And that's essentially because right now I'm going through yet another, I'll call it an intermission, right? So something that's happening in my life right now that is very painful. It's really hard to think about, but understanding that, probably in the next month or so, I'll be able to talk about it a little bit more. But understanding that it's the painful lessons that you've learned in life that are going to really resonate with people and help people trust you and understand that, when you're vulnerable with people, it gives them permission to be vulnerable in reaching out to you. And that really is kind of the bread and butter of effective coaching. Like you can't expect to present this like super polished, perfect, staged life with all of the answers and all of the solutions and expect someone who's in a darker place, right? Who essentially needs a solution. You can't expect all of that to inspire someone to really reach out to you. It just doesn't happen like that, The ugly stuff is the stuff that people need to hear, and it's the stuff that makes you really human and makes you approachable and makes you authentic. So, there's so much to my story. And, just another little snippet that about a year and a half after my husband and I divorced, I had gotten a call that his sister and my ex-sister-in-law, someone I loved very much, had died. And essentially she had died of alcohol poisoning. And it's really hard because that year after we divorced, his family very much kind of shunned me away from everyone. It was like 1 minute we were married and like his family was closer to me than my family was to me. And then it was like they were all gone. And at the same time, she was going through a divorce to her high school sweetheart. And they had 3 kids together and they were going through a divorce, and her family kind of shunned her. And she decided to get a weight loss surgery, and she didn't do any of the counseling or any of the mental health stuff to like deal with that. And, she ended up losing about 50 or 60 pounds, but she was coping with the stress of her lack of self-worth and her isolation and her lack of support system with alcohol. And, in that moment that I got that phone call from one of his aunts, my heart just like shattered into a million pieces, because prior to the divorce, and even about a month after we were going through the divorce, she confided in me about a lot of things. And then all of a sudden it was like, she just wouldn't return any of my calls. She wouldn't return my texts. Like, it was like this complete like ending of a relationship. Right. And, when I heard that she had essentially drank herself to death, it just broke me on like every level that I can explain. And that story is part of what gives me such a deep appreciation and why for what we do as coaches. Because if you think that like we're here to only like sell challenge packs and we're only here to make a commission and earn team cycle bonuses, if that's what you think is the crux of what we do, then you're never going to have a strong enough conviction to really resonate with people, right? And so understanding that, really, really getting to the true heart of why it is that we help people, it matters so much. And like thinking back to her issues that she had with self-worth and like the isolation and depression, and like she didn't have a support system at all. And like those are the kind of people that need what we have to offer, right? And so you have to appreciate that. And you have to think about maybe times in your life that you've felt those things and things that you've experienced, and like let that drive you to push through the barriers of being afraid of what other people are going to think, what you're writing and what you're sharing and whatnot. And, just understanding that like it's those really like unfortunate circumstances in our life that make us people that other people will turn to. Really, another thing I want to say is that, when it comes to posting and being consistent and being very cohesive, you can't like be at constant odds of what you're trying to say and what you're trying to convey to people, right? Like you can't like be worrying about if it sounds stupid or dumb or whatever, or it makes you look weak, because when you have that conviction about what you're saying, what you're doing, it really, really, it will help defy all of that. But that is what helps people like really trust you. It's just going all in. And obviously it's not like on your very first awesome post that people are going to like really get it and really dig in or whatever. You have to be really consistent about what you're saying, and you have to maintain the same kind of tone and outlook, and all of that's really, really important. So you kind of have to really, like I said, you have to go all in with the expectation of nothing in return. Like you're truly there to give value and to share your perspective, and really being okay with that. So I urge all of you to like look at your life like a book, because we all have our lives are all books. And right now you're in the middle of a chapter, and maybe that chapter is really awesome and maybe it's not. But, if I were to write down all of my chapters, they are really ugly, especially this current chapter. It's really ugly and it's really confusing, and you have to appreciate that. Like appreciate what it is that you're going through and what you've been through, but also thinking about what it is you've learned and what you've applied in regards to that. I think of it like, I call it my resume, like my life's resume. The thing I think about most, guys, is that while I may I feel like on social media, I'm essentially walking around like strapped together in duct tape, right? Like I'm a person who is very flawed. I've been very broken. Lots of things haven't been ideal or went my way. And whatever. And that there are a lot of people on social media who are equally as broken and hurt and in turmoil and hiding, and they're creeping on what you're writing. They're seeing what you're putting out there. They see your life. They see the things you share. And, they may be judging you or whatever, but I feel like at the end of the day, at least I'm living my truth. Like, me living my truth is the most important thing that I can do. And your truth is the most valuable thing you have to offer anybody, like, period. It's more valuable than any product we could help someone with, right? Because at the end of the day, the products that we have to give, they're amazing. They're top of the line. They're top notch. But if someone's not ready to receive that, then it doesn't matter. And the only way to know that someone's ready to receive it is to know that they admit their truth as it is right now. And so the best way for you to help people admit their truth is by sharing your own truth, sharing the things that you're dealing with. And so, a few tips that I want to share with you guys. You have to make sure that you understand your story before you try telling it to people. I think thoughts are more cohesive when it's purposeful and when you feel like there's a resonating lesson within it, like for you. If you're writing a post and you feel like it's not going anywhere, it's likely because you don't understand the message behind it either, right? Like, it becomes super important. And so, one thing I like to do, and this is a way to make pieces of your life, like, really, we call it breadcrumbing, like, span a long time, is to break down your lessons or break down your events and things you're going through into very small, like, micro lessons, things that you learned at different points of each event, things that you drew a greater understanding for, looking at it like that. And, always share things that you feel good about sharing. There have been a few times when I've wrote posts and, like, it has elicited tears, but I find that a lot of times that's been with things that I've shared that were, like, more it's because they elicited more of an epiphany, not because it was, like, severely hurtful, right? Like, if you share something that's super, super raw and it's like you're cutting yourself for the first time, it's probably not the right time to share, because it will come off really, really vivid, right? But so make sure that when you are sharing something, like, you feel ready to share it, because it will be received in a lot more therapeutic way. And, secondly, understand that your story is more than just a series of events. And I think that's something that people don't really conceptualize all that well. Understand that your story is an experience. Like, it's more than just like a timeline, like, of this happened, then this happened, then this happened. It's about, like, how you felt during those things, and it has meaning, and you have to really know the meaning in order to share it in an effective way. Like, really, really remember that. So I implore all of you to, like, write down your trials, write down your triumphs, write down moments of hardship and failures and shiny times, but, like, really think about things you aren't proud of. Like, what are things in your life that you are not proud of at all? Things that are really hard to talk about, things that you'd really rather not share. Because that's the stuff that kind of sets you free, and that's the stuff that really will make you feel like a legitimate business owner. Like, 100%. Because when you really start feeling as though you're putting in the work and you are being someone and walking the walk and talking the talk, and you're doing things that are hard, you're going to feel like someone who's earned the right to earn a commission, who's earned the right to earn a cycle bonus. Like, you have to be willing to really put in the emotional work of growing, right? So write down all of those things, and then, then write down what you learned from that. Like, be very specific. Like, think about what is it that you learned from that specific time in your life. And then number 3, the third thing that I think about is, okay, with that lesson, what is it that I am consistently applying to my life? Because I personally don't share anything that I don't feel like I'm not truly walking the walk through 100%, right? Because, or else I just feel like a phony. And which is why, I'll be honest, which is why a lot of what's happening in my life right now, I haven't shared publicly because I'm still processing it. I'm still trying to understand it. I'm still trying to like feel my way through it. And so I urge you guys to think about it like that too, because if you're going through something or you've been through something and you don't feel like you've really understood or it hasn't resonated with you on a deep level yet, then when you start talking about it or writing it, it's going to have that undertone. It's going to have that persona of, what is she saying? Does she really feel like this? Like, what is really happening? And, you know, secondly, you may change your mind about what it means. Like, if you don't yet know what it means, then when you go to write about it in a month, you may be like, wow, like, I think I was wrong about that, right? So just make sure that you understand it on a really solidified level in a way that really helps people. In terms of storytelling and writing posts, you know, some coaches are big into like planning a lot of posts and things. And I think some content definitely can be planned. When it comes to a vulnerable storytelling type post, I have to write them in the moment. Like, I have to write them when I'm inspired. And so really that's another point. Like, think about when you are inspired. Like, for me, my workouts inspire me. I usually write down a ton of notes and I have a ton of ideas and thoughts when I'm doing a workout. Airplanes elicit thought, and I actually credit that to graduate school. Like, having dealt with all of that, it just makes me feel really empowered and inspired. And then actually energize makes me emotional, and it makes me super like in tune to what's going on. It's really crazy. But you know, really know yourself. Like, when is it that you feel most inspired? Like, for me, I feel least inspired in the morning. Like, I'm not a morning person at all, right? So you just have to learn yourself, really get to know yourself, because that's when you're going to write your best work. And so there are three questions that I ask myself before I publish anything, before I write anything. And the first question is, you know, is this content valuable to me? Like, does it really tug at my heartstrings? Does it really speak to who I am and what I've been through and things I've learned just on my level? Like, that's the first boundary, because if it doesn't, then it's probably just fluff, you know, and I'm just not about the fluff. And then number two, I say, okay, can this be valuable to other people? You know, and I try to think through my mind, okay, what kind of person might this help? How might this help them? And then sometimes after I ask that question, I'm able to go back through my post and think about places that I can maybe be a little bit more descriptive and, you know, understand them. When it comes to writing posts on Facebook especially, you know, with videos, you could see facial expressions and gestures and body language, and all of that very much plays to your passion about it, right? It plays to your emotion. But when you're writing, you don't have that. So we have to think about, okay, in what ways can I really get across how I'm feeling? Because that's truly what I pride myself on in terms of my own storytelling, is I feel like when I write something, I want the person reading it to instantly feel what I'm feeling, like in that very moment. Like, that is my goal. Like, I need someone to feel exactly how I'm feeling. And so how do I do that? I really think about my adjectives that I use. I think about the feelings that I'm feeling when I'm writing it and when it happened, and I incorporate that kind of undertone into it. I break it up into like smaller paragraphs so that it's easier to read and easier to flow. It's not so hard to digest just by looking at it. And then the last threshold I think about is, if a stranger were to stumble upon my timeline, you know, that is public, would this post that they're reading like capture the heart of my message and the essence of who I am as a person completely? Like, if any one post someone read, would they get that from me? And so that's really what I think about most, honestly. It's kind of the deciding factor as to whether or not I think it's worthwhile. And I can't tell you how many times either strangers or, you know, when I always add my patients onto my social media. Like, I'm all about the relationship completely. I don't want red tape at all. Like, I I want the relationship, and I kind of spoke about that as to being why I loved physical therapy to begin with. I loved the bond and the relationship that's created. And so, my patients read my stuff. They hear all about my life, and it's truly made my clinical career much more valuable, much more rewarding. And I can't tell you how many times my patients will message me and say, wow, I read your post from August 12th, 2010, and it was just so powerful. And it's like, what? Like, you just forget that people are stalking you. They're creeping you. They're reading stuff that you put out there. And so you just better be sure that what you're putting out there represents who you are. Because it's like an instant first impression, second impression, third impression, and it becomes super important when it comes to your reputation and really building that solid following and appreciation for who you are. Like, it is super important. So that's what I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions or anything that you guys may have.
Well, Doctor, thank you so much for this call. That was very amazing, and I can definitely tell that it was heartfelt. So there's a lot to process in what you said. There's like a lot to process. Like there was a lot to digest. I think that you shared like a lot of amazing nuggets, and I think that we can all take a lot from what you said. I'm just going to open the floor first and see if anyone has any questions first, because I know I have one or two probably more to ask, but I want to make sure that everybody else gets a chance to talk or ask a question if they have anything to us. So,
Yeah. Raise
your hand if you have something. Or you need to be unmuted. And so I guess I'm going to go. Okay, I'm going to go. So the first point that I like about your speech is when you said you have to be worried of like downplaying your story, and I think that's a struggle that I see in a lot of coaches on our team. Like a lot of times we hear a lot of coaches saying, "Oh, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to write," because I think that people sometimes have this idea that, like, oh, in order for me to share something or talk about myself, I gotta have this amazing Hollywood thing that just happened to me, and then and then like Brad Pitt gotta show up with like 5 helicopters and then like explosion everywhere so that it's gonna be worthwhile for everybody watching. And I'm just wondering, at what point or when did you realize that, okay, I think this is worth sharing? And also, when did you feel comfortable sharing those particular moments or those chapters of your story with the rest of the world?
I think, that's an interesting question because, I didn't talk about this at all, but when it comes to coaching, like I never had any intention of building a business through coaching, like ever. I didn't even tell, Brooke Lipoff is my sponsored coach. I didn't even tell her that I was signing up to be a coach. I just bought a challenge pack and was like, hey, I want this for the discount. I signed up. And she's like, oh, okay. And so literally, aside from her parents, I'm the first coach that ever signed up under her organization. And so it's really funny to think about because when I put myself out there on social media, when I just happened to share with people that I lost, at that point, after about 8 weeks with T25, I lost like 30 pounds or something. And I really just wanted to kind of break out of this shell of hiding. And it's interesting because when I get those time hop announcements of things that I shared a long time ago, it was nothing like who I am now. And it really speaks to the kind of person that my friends and my family and people on social media thought of me. Like I was not portraying myself as who I really was. And so that first post, it was very innocent. It wasn't meant to elicit business. It wasn't anything. It was just, hey, look at what I've done. I feel so much better. And it was that post that I got such an interesting response from people that I was not expecting. It was like, wow. Like people were really inspired by that, And leading up to Beachbody, like I feel like I spent more time, more hours in the day searching for Instagram quotes to be inspired and motivated. Like that's all I did with my time. And all I ever wanted in life was to be someone who did inspire other people. And so when that happened, it was just kind of like a wake-up call for me. And then as I started coaching and as I started like experiencing things that you just can't make up, right? Like you can't make up feeling and internal change that resonates with you on a deep level. And that's why, it's stressed to be a product of the product, because if you're not changing, if you're not growing, if you're not learning more about who you are, you cannot fake this business. Like it will call you out. The market will call you out every single time. And so for me, I just had such a strong conviction in what this did for my life and for my career and everything that I just had to put it out there. And as I kept going and going, and I started learning how to write better, and I started learning how to convey my thoughts a little bit more eloquently and a little bit more artistically, then that's when a lot of people started messaging me, right? And they were like, wow, I can't believe how what you wrote really impacted me today or whatever. And it was those small wins that have propelled me to the place I am now and to being completely fearless about what I share, because I know that what I've shared thus far has helped people a lot, And so it's kind of like it was taking that leap initially that really kind of set the stage for giving me a little more courage to share other things. And, I'll be honest, thinking about the things that I'll be sharing in the next month or so terrifies me, like beyond belief. Even as someone who's not that scared to share anymore, these things, like they're going to be hard for me to kind of come out and share with people. But I know that I need to for myself. Like I need to own my own truth. I have to own my own life. And I can't play to this expectation of what people have of me. I can't play to the expectation of the persona of the way I've built my life, right? And neither can you. Like whether you're in chapter 10 or chapter 32, you always have to stick with the truth. Does that answer that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That answer you give me even more nuggets now. Thank you. As if the first part was not heavy as it is.
Right.
Interesting. The other thing that I wanted to ask is in terms of being authentic and not always sharing your story in a chronological order. Did you find it difficult to share some of the lesson that you have learned that has been very difficult to deal with while you are in a very good place? Or do you find it easier to share it as you struggling and you trying to actually just climb your way back to a happy place? So like, how do you cope with that?
Yeah. I think that there's two parts to that. So for instance, like the things I'm going to share in another month or so, probably, I'm still very much going to be like in it, right? Still very much clawing and like figuring it out, but not to the extent that I feel like I'm currently clawing to figure it out. You know what I mean? For me, I personally find that, especially I'm a very introverted person, so I have to process information like for a while before I understand it. And it's that understanding it that helps me share it. So like thinking about it in terms of that, but, the second answer to that, is it hard for me to, when I'm in a good place, to go back and share that stuff? And I say no, only because I truly get what I learned from it, right? Like the experience, the pain, the struggle resonated with me on such a foundational core level that I very much still feel it. Like all like the things I shared tonight, like I still feel it like really in a raw way, but I've processed it and understood it enough to an extent that it's okay for me to share, right? So I'm eloquent in how I'm able to talk about it, but I feel like the things that really change who you are, like those defining moments of who you are as a person, they never go away, you know? And that's really what, when I talk about things on social media and in terms of storytelling especially, I really go for those moments and I go for those feelings, and it's my goal to help people like feel that as well. That answer it.
That answers. Clearly, we can continue to talk for like 5 more hours because I'm like having a ball right now.
It's funny you say that. When I had hosted this call for Alita a month and a half ago, like it was the first time I'd ever talked about this. And when she reached out to me at Summit about it, like I couldn't believe it because, you know, her and Stephanie, like I completely fangirl these two coaches, right? Like they're just so amazing.
Stephanie, not so much.
But so I couldn't believe it. But after the call was over, it was like these flood of messages from her team and people reaching out about how helpful like hearing this stuff was. And, you know, I so much appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. And recently was asked to create like content for physical therapists, like storytelling as a physical therapist, you know? And so it's really helped me understand a little bit more about like what my passion is. Like I'm very passionate about storytelling because I think it's such an important skill that we have as coaches. And it really is it's a game changer for how you are able to connect with people, and connections are everything. So
I really love this call because I think that so many coaches, whether you are a seasoned one or a newbie, I think that a lot of people struggle with what do I talk about? Like, what do I say? How do I impact someone? Or like, how do I like motivate or inspire the others? I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. And to just have someone who's able to talk about it, I think it can just open a lot of people's minds and
right.
get over their fears. So
yeah. No, for sure. And one other thing to that too is if you are struggling with thinking about what you need to be saying, right? And that essentially that tells me that you deny your story, you deny what's happened in your life, and that alone tells me a lot about your growth. Like when you're really in tune with what you've dealt with in your life, you're growing. Like there's no denying that. And it's really hard to be all in this business and all in your growth as someone from a health standpoint and a mentality standpoint, you know, with personal development and your ability to build connections and relationships. If you are in tune with who you are and what you've been through and why that matters, then it's going to bleed into other people, right? But if you don't have that space, if you're not even starting from that space, then you're not going to be received. You know, it all starts with your ability to admit and to acknowledge who you are, acknowledge what you need to improve, and be excited for that growth. Because I'll be honest, probably in the past year, I feel like from a personal standpoint, my growth has been pretty subpar. And honestly, it falls right in line with everything in my life, right? I mean, your business will never exceed in growth to how you grow. They are very much in equal relationship to one another.
I'm gonna throw this out there. I think we're gonna need you back for a part 2 on this. I'm gonna personally talk to Stephanie. We're gonna need a part 2. Right?
Maybe the debate will be on, and there'll be more people.
That's the call to have.
No,
do not be surprised if I reach out to you and ask you even more questions.
Yes. No, I love it. And like, I feel like I could talk about this for years. Like, I love it so much. So I'd be happy to.
But you're right, but especially as a lot of people have, as we are called to be on social media and reach out to the masses, I think if you do not have that skill to be able to talk about it yourself, I think you just pretty much put the lid on how far or how much you can go. And I think it's very important to be able to perfect that skill, or at least be comfortable with that skill as possible, or at
out.
Well,
Yes.
doctor, anything else you wanted to add?
No, I mean, I'm good. And, if any of you guys listening to this now or the replay or whatever, feel free to reach out with me with any questions or things you have on your mind or whatever. I'd be happy to help.
You will definitely see like an emoji of like Google Live on your wall for me because I've been looking forward to what's coming up next month.
Love it.
I gotta see what you talk about. So, but again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming on our call and to sharing like all your nuggets. And really, at this point in time, really nuggets. You really shared your heart with us, and I really want to thank you for that. That was an amazing call. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
team.
guys.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't need to cut you.
Nope, just thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, team, it's been our call. Once this video is actually transferred and all that, I will post it onto the team page. And I hope all of you have a wonderful night and the rest of the week. Time, peace out.